I have the great pleasure to be joined by Aaron Newbom, who placed top 8 at the Las Vegas Open. I think it was just this past weekend, and I'm very excited to pick his brain and see what kind of stuff is in there. I bet you it's green. But first, of course, we got to thank all my patrons, Baron of Dice, use code MDG at checkout to save 5% off your order, and Wybarian, who provided all the fantastic art that you see above. Be sure to check out his Instagram. All right.
Sounds good.
Well, hey, Aaron, thanks again for taking the time to educate me and everybody else on how to really give people a proper crumpet. So I know you placed top 8, but you'll have to remind me. What was your actual placement at the very end? Like, what did you actually place?
I think it was 7th, if I'm not mistaken.
Jesus.
It's 7th. I'm not 100% sure. I think it was 7th though. Either way, I made top 8, so I was happy with that. Like, I'm the first Californian to make top 8 in LVO as far as I'm aware for iOS.
Congratulations, well done.
I've been trying for a long time. 2 of my teammates got 9th and 10th, which is pretty dope also. So
yeah, what was the name of your team? The team, is it your team or is it just a team that you're on?
Well, SCal United is SoCal players. When we travel around, we put SCal United. That way we don't play each other round one because we're trying to play people who don't play all the time, right?
Of course.
We have a bunch of like local teams, but when we travel places that are outside of state, we always like just conglomerate to make it so we're less likely to play each other because we play each other all the time, right? So
that makes sense.
Yeah, Greg and Kyle are 2 of my close friends, and they're awesome people.
Oh,
and
that's
they
excellent.
barely didn't make top 8 with 4 wins and a draw each.
Yeah, but nothing to sneeze at there. How many Right. How many players were at LVO this year? Do you remember, just off the top of your head? Like 120, 130?
Over 300. Yeah, it's a big event.
No kidding. Hold on,
it's a
let's
huge
see.
event.
8 divided by 300, top 2.5%. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And I think I entered top 8 in 3rd place. At first I was in 1st place, but then people scored above me. But yeah, it was awesome. I don't want to spoil too much about my games until I get to them, but I did kind of smash people's faces, and you guys are already going to know that I won all my games going into top 8. So my closest game before top 8 was 46-22.
That was the closest game.
That was the closest game. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So can you tell me how you ended up with this list? Like what leading up to this event sort of made you decide on to bring, and I mean, like, for everybody who can't actually read the screen right now, I'm just going to go through your list really quick. So the general is Gordrak, the Fist of Gork, with 2 Mogrunta Gougers, as well as a Tusk Boss in the regiment, and the Tusk Boss has the Eye for the Fight and the Trophy Skull. And then in a second regiment, we have Kragnos and 2 units of Gorgruntas. So in my view, this is like as big pig of a list as you go, while still being super competitive, while still having like all the tools that you need, right? And it's for everybody that's out there that wants to just play a list of Ironjawz that's just going to be like the old style where it's fast and it just punches you in the face, right? I think this is definitely the list. I think a lot of people are going to be trying this out over the weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be like the closest equivalent to the old Gorgruntas you're gonna see. Yeah. It's going to have this, like, a lot of the things that are appealing about the old way Gorgruntas played. It's kind of like that. It's not exactly the same, but it's got the same like visceral feeling to it when you're playing it. It's got the spirit of it. Yeah. But the spirit of it, yeah. And it's very, very, very high skill cap, just like old Gorgruntas. But if you don't play it well, you just smash. It's still gonna be really fun. So the way I got to this list was honestly is because I was having so much fun painting Ironjawz. Like, I've been doing really well with Idoneth competitively for a while now, but and I'm #1 Idoneth player, but like I just was loving painting Ironjawz, and I set a challenge for myself to see how high I could get on the hobby track while being competitive. So I ended up in 4th in ITC hobby as well. And that's actually how I got onto Ironjawz for LVO. I was like, I'm already top by net. I don't have to worry about it. I'm 200 points over 2nd place. I'm gonna go for one of my more passion armies in some ways. And then I was playing all these like very micro-intensive lists with lots and lots of infantry, very similar to Jacob Brandon's list, actually. List I was on was 1 unit different from his list. And the thing is, number 1, it's Vegas. I don't really want to play 5 turns of 5 rounds of intense grinding, like almost going to time
Right.
every game, while also like doing Vegas stuff and like drinking, because like I was drinking the whole time,
Sure.
and like partying and I'm going to be exhausted. Like it's just a recipe for failure, and it's going to be not really the vibe I was going for, but I still want to be very competitive. So I was designing more aggressive lists because I'm a very, very good at aggressive play, and I kind of made this list as a meme. And then I won like 7 practice games in a row, and none of them were close. I was like, "Is this like good?"
Yeah, this
like,
ain't a meme.
Like maybe counting as a joke is like a starting point of like, what if I did something extreme like this? I just kept doing well. I was like, well, screw it, I'm gonna bring it. So I spent like 100 hours painting the army, like it's super as best as I've ever painted anything, and practicing it, and that's what I brought to LVO.
That's phenomenal. So what I'm hearing you say is that you wanted to play something that was quick and easy and aggressive in a tournament setting, and Ironjawz is just something that you just love, right?
Yes.
So, and that's fantastic. But I think we all know the real reason that you wanted to play this Ironjawz list is because you wanted to come and talk to me about it when you play Top 8. Because if you did IDK, we wouldn't be here, friend.
Well, honestly, that is actually legitimately part of it. If I was playing IDK, yes, we'd talk about it. But like, I am truly more passionate about Ironjawz and Cruel Boys than I am about IDK. I love playing IDK, but I'm not passionate about them from like a lore and stuff standpoint. But also like, this if you get top 8 with Ironjawz, like that's pretty hype,
sure.
and that's a very motivating thing. Like. But living for the hype, and then the interviews and all that. So I'm super glad we're doing this interview.
And what, yeah, me too. I always just like to pick your brain and just have a chat, right? So can you give me like just a quick idea of how this list generally plays? Like if you were giving advice to someone who'd never played this list before, like just a general take, like what would you say?
Yeah, so basically what this list does, and it's going to be even better in the new book, so this will translate straight to new book.
Perfect.
Is basically what you're doing is you're taking several pigs, Kragnos, Gordrak, etc., and you're using movement to dogpile onto any exposed threats, and the Gorgrunta's job is to pin the other pieces of their army while you do that.
I see.
Basically, you see a thing that's kind of exposed, and you set up for deployment, and you kind of like make like 2 little dog piles, and then if something pushes out too far, everything slams into it, and the Gorgruntas rush in, and they die. They don't do no damage. They're just coming in there to die, but buy time for your threats to keep deleting things. And then by the time they're out of that pin, you've already deleted like most of their army, and you've only lost like 360 points of pigs. And then you still have like 1,600 points of massive threats, and you've deleted like 1,000 points. And you just overwhelming mass at that point. If you slam all the way into them with everything, you just lose. It's not a good stat check. You have to, if you have movement as a big stat in your army, you better be using that movement. So that's like kind of how it plays.
I see. Okay, so you're just being faster than them, and like dogpile. I think that's a pretty good sort of word, right? You're just dogpiling on whatever opening, whatever weakness, whatever mistake your opponent has made, and trading efficiently.
It's a control army, but people don't realize it's a control army because Ironjawz is one of the best control armies in the game. Ironjawz and Khorne are like, and Tzeentch are like 3 of like the best controlling armies. Mighty Destroyers is incredibly good if you know how to use it right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like even in my top 8 game, I completely caught Jeremy off guard. He knew how it worked, but he was like, he didn't realize, we were talking about, he didn't realize how incredibly good this list is at pinning. There was many games where the game was over without a single model having died in their army yet. Turn 1.
Right.
Because of how good the game is.
You just, like, you caught them. Right,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
trap them, and then it's like, uh-oh, everything I have is sort of pinned down or in combat, and my opponent controls the board, and they're going to have a much easier time scoring tactics and taking the primaries than me. Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some normal... Well, what was your normal honor guard? What was your go-to?
It was the same thing every single game. Prized pig. Prized beast and the pig boss.
Right.
It's the only one you're really ever going to pick with this. It's incredibly good. The pig boss hits super hard. That part does get a little bit worse for the new book. And you probably will want to be switching a few units around here and there to kind of fine tune towards what the new book rewards. Maybe want to have a wizard somewhere. But +1 to hit on a unit that's that high damage is really important.
Sounds pretty good. And how about tactics? Like, what are normal? Like, what tactics do you find really easy, and which ones are kind of impossible for you here?
I don't know if there were any that were impossible, or even particularly difficult, actually. This list is very good at scoring battle tactics. I actually scored time to get stuck in 3 times.
Oh, that's impressive. Wow.
Yeah, I scored it in my first time ever having done it ever was round 3 on stream. I actually did it wrong technically, but if I had done it properly, it would have been the exact same thing. Because I didn't realize you also have to name which 3.
Oh, you have to pick 3.
Got it anyway.
Right.
It was
sure.
It was the same ones that were going to land, but I didn't name it because I didn't realize at the time. Because there's so many clauses in that stupid battle tactic.
Yeah, yeah.
You're always like, oh no, never mind. Like, so, but it was actually really good at that because it's like a bunch of single models that move very fast. That and I have 3/6 charging, so it's very consistent. And I can get and shoot across the table, be holding inside my zone. So it's actually like it's really good at every single battle tactic ever. Seize the center is a little scary. That's about it though.
Right, because you don't want to like sit in the middle of the table and be exposed but you want to be getting it. Yeah, you either want to be like holding back or going sort of all in, right?
Yeah.
Or dogpiling onto their side. That's pretty cool. How did your how were your matchups? Like, how do you want to tell me about your games?
Yeah, I would love to talk about my games because that's part of the most fun thing. So round 1, I fought a player from Utah. I'm not gonna remember most of their names,
Sure,
but I would recognize them by Bcalm. He was playing Feck, and Feck is not a good matchup for this list. It's a scary one. So I was like, well, going straight into the fire, I guess. And this was actually probably my second hardest game of the top 8 that I played.
Why is it a bad matchup?
So for one, trying to pin more Beg Knights doesn't work.
Right. Retreat and
they
charge.
Have flying and retreat and charge. So they can pretty much be wherever they want. So the big strategy of blowing things up and then pinning doesn't work. Their recursion is very effective, and they can be very tanky if I'm coming into them. And I need to be charging to be doing my damage. So there's a lot of challenges to overcome that matchup. I would say it's like a 30-70, not in my favor. Probably the worst matchup in the game, actually.
And they're a pretty good army overall right now, hey? Like Feck, yeah.
I think they're the best army. In my opinion, they're the strongest army in the game.
Right.
And there was 2 in top 8, and 9th and 10th were also Feck, so I think that supports it. So I come into this matchup. I did take a picture of my deployment, but I didn't send it to you. I should have done that.
Oh, that's fine.
It's the only one I remember to take a picture of my deployment on. But basically, I win the roll off for who drops first, so that helps a lot already right there. So I'm going to give him first turn. He just take the flanks with 2 units of 6 more Beg Knights. Comes with the flanks, and he really messed up by doing that. He should have just either done like a seize their land and like touched something, or then seize the center and made like a big tanky ball that I had to come into. By setting his 6 knights up each side, I set half my army into each unit and deleted all 12 of them.
Right, as just right off the rip, just a start.
Just a start. So like he, threw half of his army up the table, separated with no way to support either one of them, and I killed all of them because he overexposed himself. So that set things up pretty poorly for him right there. And then I 1-2 doubled him, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to take him. I didn't want to give him a chance to recur. But he basically had Usheron with 6 Crypt Horrors.
Yeah.
On each side of him. Or Crypt Guard. No, the big ones that are like 4 ones apiece.
Yeah.
The Horrors, yeah. And he had Bodyguard on one of them, and he had a bunch of defensive buffs up and stuff like that. So I wasn't really under the impression I'd be killing all of them, and I'd be at -1 attack and all this stuff. But I was like, if I do, I win.
Yeah, that's game.
That's game, right? And if I don't, well, he's gonna have a hard time scoring, and I'm probably gonna be so far ahead. It's gonna be difficult for him when he's trying to get out of that thing. So it's still gonna. I think it's worthwhile. It's not really a situation that my list wants to be in, because I wouldn't be fighting like their whole army versus my whole army.
Yeah,
basically. But I did already kill all the Morbeg Knights, so it's like he can't punish me too hard. So I go in. And he chose a countercast, and he miscast an Usheron. Takes 3 mortals, and then I charge in, and he redeploys to be tighter against Usheron. So there's no way for me to get into combat with the horrors without fighting Usharon, which I think was a critical mistake because Kragnos comes in and does mortals. You know, just 6 mortals, but still at 6 mortals. Could have been 36, right? So it was a mistake. They didn't get punched too hard. So Usharon's already at 9 wounds taken right here. And my whole army comes in. I can't quite get Gordrak into him. He's at like 3.1 at the closest point. So because of how the other side of it was. And they're all in bodyguard range, stuff like that. But what ends up happening is, so spoiler, I did not roll good in any game except for round 3. The whole tournament. Like, right. I rolled pretty poorly. Like, yes, I killed those Morbeg Knights, but it was like, you know, Kragnos plus 2 big pigs and 3 small pigs. And then over here is Gordrak plus, like, you know, it's like a bunch of stuff, like, and all attacking, like, killing them exactly to the wound, you know, missing a lot of stuff. So it was like, even with that, it was rolling, it was kind of tough, but I come into him and I swing, I give him strike last with the Gouger on 2-up, and then I fight, and Kragnos, Pig Boss, and Gouger all together do 4 damage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good.
No kidding.
And I even have, like, I have Wah up, and with this, the Gordrak Wah, so it's +1 to hit, like, and I'm still just doing nothing. He swings back, Usharon one-shots Kragnos.
Right. That's not super surprising.
Through the ward,
yeah,
through everything, through all defense, didn't matter, and kills the Pig Boss with his horrors, and gets Gordrak down to 4 wounds left. And Gordrak manages to kill 0 models, kills not even 1 horror. So I'm sitting there, I've done 4 damage with Gordrak, Kragnos, and 2 big pigs. But I have 3 small pigs in the back of this pile. And they kill like a small character. And that won me the game. So goes into him, and he picks up a bunch of stuff basically. But I have a Gouger who's injured, and Gordrak ends up retreating, and he's got like 2 wounds left on him. And I'm kind of zoning out the backfield with my other unit of small pigs. So
right, because they recur. Right, they recur around the battlefield edge, right?
Yeah, and I know he can't get the ones on the side, so he's trying to get the back one, so I zone that out so he can't do that. He brings back both these units, and I'm kind of just moving around. I managed to sneak a Gouger in there, because he kind of leaves an opening to hit Usharon. Failed to give him strike last on my 2-up roll, and then he rolls a 6 to give me strikes last. Kills my Gouger.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is rough. I have Gordrak and 2 pigs. But he has been essentially unable to score the entire game. And he can't move because I have these 3 pigs that keep my destroying into the back of his giant pile.
Yeah.
And he kills one, I pull him out of combat. So only one gets to fight. So he's got Usharon and all 12 horrors tagged. His next 2 turns in a row. And he already, got blown up turn 1, and that was dogpile him, so it's already round 5, and he's scored like 8 points.
I feel like the story that you just told is a perfect example of what you were talking about with how this list works, right? It's like you're essentially you're like, well, I have so many wounds on a lot of 3-up saves, and I'm gonna Mighty Destroyers and tag all the things you don't want tagged and pin all the things you don't want pinned, and you're not going to be able to score. And even if you beat me on the table, like even if you're killing my models and winning like points killed versus points killed, I still have board control, I'm still controlling the primaries, and I have a relatively easy time of scoring my tactics. And you just sort of, like you said, it's a control army. You're like out grinding your opponent in the long term. But the difference between like an infantry Ironjawz and this Ironjawz is this one is heavy on mobility, right? 3d6 charges, 9-inch moves, and so that's pretty. I feel like that's a perfect example of what you were talking about before.
Yeah, it's got a higher threshold for what it can do because of its movement, but it's also way less forgiving than a infantry. So, but yeah, it's exactly what you said. Yeah, it's the perfect example of what this list does, and it was on display there. And I definitely beat him, but he made it hard, and I did not kill a lot of his army. And he did kill almost all of my army, but I did win that game like 46-18.
Right.
But it's like a misleading number in terms of like how the game felt, right? But that's what this list does. It's a tempo control type thing. So then I go and I fight his friend, who's also from Utah, the next round. And he's playing Cities of Sigmar. His army's insanely beautiful. Like it's just so beautiful. He painted it like amazingly, and he essentially loses on deployment. He was very scared of my aggression, and he ended up putting his whole army basically between two impassable terrain pieces and putting a bunch of hammerers up front, which can be very, very tanky. He would have like two up, 5-up save, the 2-up save, 5-up ward, and like it's a -1 to hit and stuff like this. So like and -1 to wound with all these prayers and stuff. So, like they're very hard to kill. And his whole thing, like he's thinking, oh, I'm going to come in and try and smash. I don't do that.
Right.
I just send in 3 pigs and touch the corner of the hammers barely, and the rest of his army stuck behind them and literally can't move.
Right. Awesome. Good play.
And he does have like some shooting units off on the side. I kill those because they're free for me to kill basically. But that's pretty much the game right there. Like he never gets out of his deployment zone the whole game. He did have like some deep striking guys who we were playing jawz, and he never deleted any objectives because he had these like guys scoring in the back. He's like, I could delete objectives, but you're still going to score 10 every turn.
Yeah.
And that means I'm going to score 2. You know, I'd rather get 4 or 6 points than 2 because I'm clearly going to lose this game. So he never deletes it. But this is actually my closest scoring game. It ends up being 46-22. And
close game.
It was just lost on deployment. Yeah, like that was the closest way. He basically lost on deployment. He tried to play his way out of it, but it was just like a critical mistake, misunderstanding what I can do.
Well, I was going to ask you this question. I was going to say, like, so if I were to go look at all the lists at LVO, there's like 300 plus lists. And like you were there in person, and I know that you probably aren't, like I know that you don't know everybody's list and everything, but I would imagine that there wouldn't be a ton of lists that are this elite. And by elite, I just mean like, yeah, you have like so few models, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is 11. 11 models on the table. I could imagine that this is like in the top like 10 most elite lists probably at LVO.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a couple Gargant players.
Right, like, sure, right. But there, I would...
Gargant's aside?
Yeah, Gargant's aside, because, of course, right?
But, like, I know a few Sylvaneth lists that are super, super elite, but for the most part, no. People are trying to... Because it's a really, really big tournament, people are scared of playing risky armies, which I think is a mistake. Being consistent is not necessarily the way to win, it's the way to not lose.
And those are different.
Those are two different things. Yeah. And if your goal is to not lose, you're not really giving yourself a setup. Like, you play the thing that you play well. Don't be scared to play your list. In fact, you're way better off playing your list than a good list.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time.
Yeah. Muscle memory, like being able to fall back on these skill sets and take off some of the mental strain lets you look at, like, one of the reasons I played this list is, like, I like to say it's like League of Legends playing Garen. If you're, like, an okay player, play Garen because he's dead simple, and now you can look at the bigger game much more clearly because you're having to think about all these mechanics.
Right.
And then also just having experience on your list is going to do way more for you than playing a stronger list.
Yeah.
Most of the time, with occasional exceptions when lists are like crazy dumb broken, but that's super rare.
I tell people too they should play lists that they think are fun.
Yeah.
Because if it's your play style and you're having a good time, right?
When the game's going bad and you're playing a list you don't like, it's rough. Like, the tilt is real and you stop playing well. And if you don't like, whereas if you love your list and the game's going bad, it's frustrating, but it's a lot easier to keep your head on straight, keep your vision clear, and like focus in. And you also know how to play your way out of shaky situations a lot better. So I do always tell people, play your list the way you like to play.
But sort of the point I was trying to get to at the beginning was the fact that it's so elite and that it's also fast and it's also Ironjawz. Your opponent lost in deployment, but that must be something that, like, even in your practice games, must have happened. Like people are really deploying, like, they're not comfortable deploying against a list like this because you don't run into it very often, and it's sort of intimidating. It's like, well, what do? Do I put everything really far back, or maybe I put I know what I'll do. I'll put my hammers right here in these choke points so that he can't get me. And then you're like, haha, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes the threat of violence is more powerful than
exactly.
the violence itself.
Perfectly,
right?
exactly. Well said.
So because I can blow things up if you deploy wrong, um, it's like really hard to strike the balance between deploying to a point where I can't hit your critical stuff, but also like that I can't just stop you from doing what you want to do. It puts a lot of mental pressure and emotional pressure on your opponent when you're playing a list like this, and that's an important thing. Like it is a very real aspect of the game, the above table game they call it, but like it doesn't like top players aren't going to be as affected by that because they've learned how to do that. But like your average player, it's going to be really really hard for them to figure out what to do. They're going to be scared, nervous. It's overestimate or underestimate. Like it's one of the powers of a list like this. It's a little unclear what I can do, and it's scary.
Game 3.
So game 3 was the one on stream. I highly recommend you guys go watch that. I do think I played it well. It was Ogres versus Ironjawz. He also played it pretty well. We talked right before the game began, before you had the mics and everything. We're like, well, someone's going to be tabled by turn 3. It's just a matter of who it is, right?
Right.
And we pretty much everything that each other touched that died, which is not surprising. And it just so happened he also reckoned this before the game and told me immediately afterwards. Neither of us was really surprised by the result because I have a longer threat range. I have Kragnos and my destroyers. If I didn't have Kragnos, he's probably favored. But Kragnos lets me hit him first, more likely. So it becomes a very tricky game for him. I think he played it well. He like put all his stuff down one flank. I think where he made a little bit of a mistake, he should have just killed Gordrak with his whole army instead of going after the little pig over there. Much more likely to work, and his army is like not as stretched out, and he's deleting a major threat in my army. And I think the positioning would have been a little better for him right there. But mind, small stuff here and there. But I think it just came down to one of those matchups where the person who lands the charges gets the win there. He did not roll particularly good. This was like the match I would say that I rolled hot in for the most part. He rolled pretty poorly in this one too, but I don't think that's what determined the game. It was a super fun match though. So I last that.
Your list has a really low volume of dice, doesn't it?
Yeah, very very few dice rolling. Like the most anything ever rolls is like 13.
How does that impact like your decision making? How does that impact your choices for like all out attack? How does having a low dice count list change you as the general?
I think if you have a low dice count list, it can be very easy to tilt, and playing Destruction can be very easy to tilt about dice. So if you're going to play a low dice thing and if you're going to play Destruction, just my biggest advice is, other than maybe light jokes, don't even talk about the dice. Just roll them and see what happens. Because there's a lot of 4-ups, there's a lot of low amounts of dice, and I have to not rely on my dice working. So my game plans are like lots of redundancy. I'm trying to make plays that don't really care if I roll hot or cold, for the most part, barring like extreme examples. So like that's why I dogpile like three things into one target.
Right, you're making sure.
I'm making sure, and it's better to make sure. I had to have all this redundancy and be safe, and like sure I could potentially kill 3 separate units, but like there's a huge chance I don't, so I just don't go for that. It's very swingy. Like pigs are super super swingy. I did have like one pig, completely decimate like 30 wounds in one go, and then next round did 0 damage. It's just kind of how it is with them.
Well, in your FEC game, right? In your FEC game, you threw a bunch of, and it's like, oh, I dealt 4 damage. It's like, yep, that's going to happen sometimes, but you got to like. That doesn't mean you're losing, like you said about getting tilted, right? You're still in a good spot. You just have to, you
have to be resilient.
Sure,
you have to brawl it out, channel your inner Ironjawz, and just take the punches to the face and keep going.
And just you're a destruction player, you got to keep smiling. Like win or lose, you're having a great time. Yeah.
You're swinging it with damage 5 attacks. When they go off, you're going to be overjoyed. When they don't, it's like, oh well. Like you just have to like let it be. It can be mentally challenging though. If you're someone who's risk averse, which I'm not, but like if you are, it's probably not the army for you, you know. But I think most destruction players are not very risk averse.
I think if you're risk averse and you want to play Ironjawz, you could probably play Zogrok.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So game 3 was who punches whom first, and how about game 4?
Game 4, this was versus this one I thought I was gonna lose, I'll be real. So it was shifting objectives, which is my second least favorite mission in the game. I hate the mission. It's extremely lopsided in terms of matchups. It's the one with the 3 objectives in a line down the center, and one gets priority every turn. And I was fighting Trogs.
On that. Yeah. I look at that and I'm like, shifting objectives against Trogs. Like, you're gonna have to like, that's just, I think for everybody that's a really bad matchup.
Yeah, so I thought I was gonna lose it really bad, but I decided to take top of 1, and I charged his Loonshine, and I was gonna pile in and Mighty Stories and tag a bunch of his stuff so he can't move up turn 1, and with 3 Trogs, 6 attacks, no up attack, he hits all 6, wounds all 6, and I fail all 6 armor saves and take 18 damage, and the whole unit gets picked up. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is not going to go good. But what ends up basically happening is he can't get the objectives from me. Kragnos counts as 15.
Yep.
My pig boss counts as 15.
Right, because of trophy skulls. Yep.
The trophy skulls, and I had like launched my pig boss down one flank and killed a small unit of squig so he couldn't take the flanks turn 1. And he failed his turn 1 tactic because he tried to do fight with 2 units, and I might have stories backwards and minimum 4 redeploy away from him, and he's not that fast. So he fails one of his charges, he fails his battle tactic, he scores 1 point. I scored 10, he scored 1. It goes in the next turn, he's like trying to do another battle. I forgot which one it was, but he's trying to do a battle tactic. It's not really working out for him. I pinned him with some other stuff, like in annoying spots, and he can't get control of the objectives from me. And I had wrapped around with one of my things all around the backside, charged on the flank, and I basically tagged all of his small things and like his 22 squigs or whatever it was. I forgot, 24. And his 10-man squig unit with this guy, so they can't move, and he can't control objectives, and he ends up getting 0 points on turn 2, but he's killing stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm not killing stuff. But he scored 1 and then 0, and then on turn 3 he scored 10 or 9 or something like that. I think he scored 9. And he's starting to like kind of get back into the game, but the swingy pig dice turned my way. And all of a sudden, I just did like 30 damage to Trogs in one go. Like, and that, it happens sometimes with when you're doing 5 damage with your attacks, and like they just go through sometimes. And so I just like lifted him up on that turn, and then he scored like 0-0 after that, because I just wouldn't let him get the objectives. And the squigs only count as 1, so as long as I have like a single model on the objective, he can't take it back from me. He didn't have any good battle tactics left. He couldn't take the flanks. He'd already failed Do Not Waver. He'd already failed kind of maneuver or whatever cunning, that one.
Cunning approach?
Cunning approach, yeah. So he failed to kill the thing that he was trying to cunning approach, because I pulled out of combat like strategically with one of the models, and then he couldn't fight with the second one. Because when he did like enough damage to my small pigs, I removed a model, and he couldn't fight with the other unit to finish him off.
They're quite good at that, aren't they?
Yeah, and they have long bases. You put them sideways. It's like a 9-inch area that they cover, and so like if you minus stories to just barely tag one model in their army, they just fight with some of them, but not that many. And you pull out of combat with the other stuff, and then in the next hero phase, minus stories tag everything again. So it's super obnoxious.
That's an excellent piece of tech. It's like a piggy conga line.
Yeah. So I think I won that game like 50 to or 40 something to like 12. No, it was to 10. I think he scored 10. It was very, very, very lopsided. But again, a lot of my army was dying. It's just that's not what the point. And there was a lot of moments where it was like he had exactly the same control as me on objectives, right?
15.
It was like, oh man, if you have one more model, one more guy on this objective, you'd have it, but he didn't. So he's like, the score was super lopsided, but there was a lot of like nail biter scoring moments, like, and a lot of times when it was like, oh, I could die right now to this swing, and I passed just enough armor saves to live with like, one wound left on my guy. I still probably would have won, but it would have been a much closer score. Had a couple dice rolls here and there. I wasn't rolling good necessarily. But he was trying really hard to play back into the game, and he was a good player. And he was a super fun player too. Like, we were fist bumping and laughing and high fiving the whole game with funny moments.
Well,
like,
it's a 3-0 player, right, at this point in the tournament. Yeah. He was definitely good. It was just one of those things. There was a lot of small moments. Had they flipped the other way, the score would have been close. I still think it would have won because I got so far ahead early, but it would have been a much closer score. But that was a fun game. I liked that. Do you think?
Do
you think that Gore Gruntas are the best pinning unit in the game?
Yes.
Because they're like, I know there are some very other good like tar pit pinning units, but none come to mind that are particularly fast.
Khorne has their heavy cavalry, but they're more expensive and require resources to do what they do.
And aren't they more like about the damage?
No, they're very similar to Gore Gruntas actually. But the thing is that you have to spend a blood tithe every time you want to do it.
Oh, I'm thinking Slaves to Darkness. Sorry.
And it's the end of the movement phase. So in the Khorne versus Ironjawz mirror, Khorne has the advantage because of timing. But in other situations, it's much better to pin someone during the hero phase than it is at the end of their movement phase.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So I think Gore Gruntas are the best pinning unit in the game, and that's the only thing that's coming close is those Khorne cavalry. Everything else is not even close. They're massively far and beyond, and that's why people always like, "Oh, Gore Gruntas are trash." No, they're not. They're just not what you think they should be.
Yep, they're me.
Fantastic.
I said that for the longest time. I was like, these guys are just garbage. Like, the +1 damage is on this terrible, and now it's like a 5 up to hit. Like whatever, the cavalry bone, it doesn't matter. It's like they don't deal any damage, but it's like, are they S tier? Like, are they an auto include? Like, do you include a unit of Gore, at least one unit of Gore Gruntas in every Ironjawz list, and maybe every Big Wa list that you play?
Big Wa, no. They're not that good in Big Wa because you don't have Mighty Destroyers. But in general, I would say bring at least 3 if you're playing Ironjawz, unless you're playing like the other option you can do is using like Ragers or Rekkas, and if you have like a Field Marshal run in charge, like that's also a similar type of role, but they have different utility here and there. They're better about denying battle tactics and stuff like that. So it's like, but you want either Gruntas or Rekkas / Ragers, depending on your exact build of and using them that way. Like, if you do that with Ironjawz, you would be able to go like way up, because that's what makes Ironjawz good.
Is pinning and Mighty Destroyer. I totally get why Mighty Destroyers is a really big part of what makes Gore Gruntas a really efficient pinning unit, right? And for sure. But in Big Wa, I would think that being able to like throw 3 pigs at your opponent, have them all die, and then recur 2 pigs and throw them at your opponent would also have a lot of value.
They're good in Big Wa. They're good in Big Wa. You just use them like that a little bit more. So like, I definitely think they're good in Big Wa. Like, you definitely want to use them.
They're less of a surgical approach and more just like I'm gonna get 5 for the price of 3 in 2 rounds, and that's it, right? Like, you're gonna kill them, and I'm not gonna try to save them. They are just gonna pin 5 of your units and hold you back for your movement phase.
They're not gonna pin as well, but they are gonna still disrupt your opponent. They're gonna do some damage. They're gonna die, and you get it back. Yeah, exactly. Like, because they're fast enough to do like a turn 1 trade.
Yeah.
And then turn 2, you're bringing back a unit. And you can use Ragers for the same sort of job, right? Like,
they're just far fewer wounds with the Ragers.
Yeah, but they have other tricks they can do, and like they do hit harder.
I guess it comes down to a play style difference here, right? It's like, do you want to throw in?
And they're cheaper. So,
and they're cheaper.
Like,
they are cheaper. 60 points.
Yeah. 240 per 6 is like pretty efficient. Whereas if you wanted to play 6 Gore Gruntas, it'd be 3. Like, it's more efficient. It depends on your exact build. Gore Gruntas are better at that specific job, but
I think Ragers are also faster.
Sometimes.
Well, it's if you're playing
or if you want to use CP.
Yeah, it's 10. Right? Is how far they can move with a CP.
To move and +1 to run in charge with Big Wa is pretty nice. So helps. I'm gonna be playing them in Big Wa for sure. But we're not talking about Big Wa right now. We'll talk about that another time.
another time.
So that was my round 4. Now it's game 5, and this is for my friend Roberto. His list is very scary, but very bad versus me. And we were talking about before the game. He was like, I was one of like 2 people he wanted to dodge out of the undefeated players,
Right.
and he probably would have won or come close to winning every other game except for me, Tom Guan, and the Siege player. So he's playing 12 Therodons with Be'lakor and 30 warriors and some small characters. Super techie list. It's really, really good, actually. It's a terrifying list. But the exact way my mechanics line up, I get to play around a lot with, like, I don't have to... Basically what he does is he'll have 12 Therodons and Be'lakor, and if you charge into them, he gets to take 2 of those units and try and give them strikes first. And if Therodons hit you first, you're dead.
Right.
And then he can give them like 3 to 6 charges. So if you don't come into him, he can go and get you. So he's able to control space really well. He's got 30 warriors that run around just holding objectives and denying you the angles you want to get. And he's got like bridge and things like that. So you can do 3d6 charge, cast a bridge, shoot some Therodons at you, and just absolutely delete you if you're playing too cautious. So it's like a nice balanced thing. The problem is, number one, my pinning is really good there because I'm not... His activation for strikes first is during the combat phase, at the beginning of combat phase. So if I'm like charging something else and piling in, which my list is very good at because I'm so fast, he can't... And I only have like 1 model. I need to get barely within 3 inches of them, as opposed to having to get a whole unit in. So I can actually put my full damage into him without having to actually be in his effects, essentially. So, and he knew that going in also. Like, Roberto's a good player. He knew what was going on. And he was trying, but like, it was very clear where the game was going. And also the mission very heavily favored me. Because the mission required him to get... If he wanted to get more than one objective, he had to overextend. And like that, if on a different mission, I think it's a very even matchup. On that mission, he just... And I knew his list too well also, because like I knew all his tricks because we talk about, you know, like we're friends. So I ended up beating him like 50-10, and it was that lopsided.
Well, when you said he was forced to overextend, that's where your list is going to punish the hardest. Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to have a piggy death ball moving around, picking off all the stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he didn't really have a choice. He did his bet. Like, he was using bridge defensively to like block off angles of attack and like trying to use his warriors to do it. But like, because I literally have to get one tiny fraction of one base within 3 inches of his guys, it's just like trying to predict every single thing I can do is like impossible.
It's a lot.
Whereas like most armies, if they tagged your Therodons, that's fine. Like, one model's fighting, sure. Me, it's like, oh, my pig boss came in and he's doing like all this, and you're only a 4-up save. Like, I'm deleting like 5 Therodons right there, you know. So it was just one of those things where I just kind of lined up that way. And I do think like if he had fought anyone else, he probably would have been top 8, because his list was very good. But I crushed it. It was a really fun game though. Like, and we were just joking about it. He's always a good-natured guy. So.
Well, you and I were talking before I hit record or whatever about like playing competitive Magic, and you used to play a lot of competitive Magic, and I have played a ton of competitive Magic over in my life. And playing competitive AOS, there's definitely, I feel like, way more randomness and way more, just variability. I think, well, the thing with Magic is that if you have like a 60 card deck and you have multiples of 4 in the deck, and you can even have like redundant like effects, you can have like 2 different cards that are going to like scry 1, draw a card or something, you know, you're able to be way more streamlined. And like the fact that you can like mulligan, and there is no randomness, like there is no dice, right? Like the randomness only comes from like drawing off the deck, which, you know, is random, but nowhere near as much as all the dice and the priority rolls and the double turns, like all, and the 2-up to do abilities, and right, like there's so much more randomness.
The thing is that there's also way more things happening, and so like failing at one thing doesn't matter as much. And secondly, I personally feel that Warhammer is a way less random game than Magic is, because in my experience in Magic, 2/3 of the game is not a real. 2/3 of the time, your game is not a real game. Either one person gets screwed by the deck, or the other person does about 2/3 of the time.
Or someone just curves out.
A real good game.
Sure.
Well, yeah, like one person gets mana screwed, one person doesn't. Like 2/3 of the time that kind of happens, except for in like certain specific types of matchups, like control and control. It's usually not like that. But Warhammer, here's an interesting statistic that really got me motivated to compete at Warhammer. So the best players in Magic in the world have like a 56% or to 58% win rate over time. And that's, about 2/3 win rates, best 2 out of 3. Like, you're getting pretty close to winning most of your best 2 out of 3s at a competitive level. Warhammer, the best players in the world have an 88 to 92% win rate.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I definitely think that Warhammer has a way higher skill ceiling. Higher skill ceiling than Magic.
Your skill matters. Like there's a lot of randomness, but most of the randomness isn't actually what determines the outcome of the game.
Like 100% agree. 100% agree. Like really good generals, really good pilots, really good players win tournaments. Like good list builders, and like you were saying before, it's like you build your lists in such a way that if the dice aren't going in your favor, you're actually still winning. Like it's okay that your dice fail you sometimes really badly. You can still slay.
Yeah, and like 1 out of 10 games or so, like there'll be a game that truly the dice were like a very high impact.
Sure,
who won.
It happens.
It does happen from time to time, but it's like not that common. So that's why you see the same people winning over and over and over again, because they train hard, they understand the game really deeply, and they work really hard at it, and it rewards that.
It's funny because I was, like LVO's coming up and thinking, oh, I really hope there's some orcs in the top, whatever, like top 16 even, like that'd be cool. And then it's like you and Jacob Brandon, and here, it's like I just reach out, hey guys, like I'm playing the same opponents over and over here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like I was like, oh, this is dope. Like, who would have expected that? Not me.
Oh, it's phenomenal. I'm super pumped. 2 Ironjawz players. Yeah, it was great.
2 Ironjawz players in top 8. Who would have thought? But speaking of which, let's get to my top 8 game.
Yeah, let's hear
top 8. I fight against Jeremy Lefebvre, who won LVO last year, and spoiler alert, he won this year as well. And he's playing Cities of Sigmar, and I think everyone else thinks it's a bad matchup for me, but it's not. I think it's a pretty favorable matchup. It's a hard one. Like, you have to know what you're doing. But if you do, like, it's actually a pretty good matchup for me. There's a lot of things that he has to do to be able to win that game. So what happens basically?
Why is it a good matchup?
I'll walk through the game.
Okay, let's.
And then as I'm going, I'll explain why the matchup is good for me.
Perfect.
So, because everyone thinks like, oh, I can't kill the hammers, but like I don't have to kill the hammers. That's not what my game plan is. So he basically deploys pretty defensively, but he has like he has some things in the sky, and he has like a single assassin off on one flank that's like holding objective, and he's going to be using him to run around the table scoring points, because that's a lot of how Jeremy Lefebvre plays. He likes to use small units to do most of the work for him, and are very annoying. You have to commit resources to stop them. So it's like it's a really strong game plan that he does. But I basically go in with 6 pigs, top of 1, and he underestimates just how deep my pinning can go, because I'm moving 3 in the 9, 12 with one unit, 9 with the other, and then I'm 3-6 charging, then I'm piling in, and basically I end up tagging essentially every single unit in his army. So not during my turn. I kill like his command core with the 6 pigs. They all go into that. But then during his turn, during his hero phase, my story's in, and every single unit in his army's tagged at that point.
Right.
There's not a single model that's not, except for the assassin on the plane.
And from a bad angle.
Yeah, in a place where he very much doesn't want to be, and we're playing on limited resources. So my whole game plan is like, let him have these 2 points. If I win the party, I'm handing it to him, and he's going to burn those 2 points, and then he has to try and get out of that while I continuously send things in to pin him, and keep him tagged in that back section so he can't score primary. I don't have to kill his army. He can't get out of that pin very well. He needs to charge to do damage, and I have a really big charging advantage. Like, most of his stuff does almost no damage unless he's charging. It's a massive damage spike when he does charge. So that is why it's an advantage, because I have the charging advantage, and it's he just can't kill me fast enough if he's not charging. But he does have some outs, and I knew about this. He has the bridge. If he can get the bridge off, he has a way out. It's still tricky, but when I'm doing that, I move my models in such a way where he's not going to be able to bridge forward. he has to bridge backwards if he wants to get up pins.
Because you're zoning out the board, because you're in his face.
I specifically was like, okay, he's here measuring some things, putting these guys here, put this guy here. Like, there's nowhere you can really get these guys, and move forwards. You have to move backwards, which is still working out just fine for me. It's not ideal. I hope he doesn't, because then he gets to charge. He's going to kill more models, but he does get it off. The hammers teleport behind. He gets to do an order move 3-inch, 6-inch charge. He makes it. No surprise there. Kills 3 pigs with them. I make a mistake, and I alt defense those pigs, and I should not have. And I think that's actually where I lost the game here.
Yeah.
Because the other pigs, which were just tagging like Crosswomen, barely tagging Cold One Knights, and tagging a small character, that took him taking 1 damage turn before. But I knew these other pigs were gonna die. Like, there's no way they live. 20 hammers overkills them by 15 wounds. 20 hammers does so much damage.
Yeah.
On the charge. He rolls really hot. I roll poor on my saves, and the crossbowmen and 4 Cold One Knights and a small foot character managed to kill all 3 of those pigs. To the wound. Exactly killed them. And that's really bad for me, because if I have even one guy there with 1 wound, I'm going to just, my stories, tag his hammers, keep his crossbowmen tagged, and a couple small characters, and he's still stuck there. And the Cold One Knights get to come out and do some stuff, but the most of his army's still stuck. But that doesn't happen. So then he is free. He rolls prio. He gets a 6. I roll 1, so he takes prio. And he's still in I basically put him in a position where even with all this, he does have to make 2 9-inch charges, or make 1 9-inch charge and 1 shorter one. So I'm trying to make it really hard for him. And he rolls really hot in the shooting, does 8 damage to Gordrak with shooting, and at the same time one-shots one of my pigs with the same unit in the same turn, after splitting fire, because I pass 1 armor save, and he's rolling super hot on 2s and 4s, but he wounded 80% of the 4s, and I rolled really bad on my save, so I lost one of my gougers and took 8 damage on Gordrak from one turn of shooting from 20 little crossbowman guys.
Yeah.
Which is rough for me, obviously. And then he charges in the Cold One Knights into Gordrak, and manages to kill Gordrak with them as well. So only 7 of them get to fight, but he rolls good, I roll bad, Gordrak dies. He lands the 9-inch charge he needs with the hammers, and deletes Kragnos, but my pig boss kills all 20 hammers. So, but at this point, I have a pig boss and a gouger. And that's it.
Right. And yeah.
But turn 1, he scored 8. Turn 2, he scored 4. I scored 10. And then I scored 10 again. And he managed to score 8 the next turn, because I'm just being really annoying. I'm killing those little scattered units. But the pig boss got injured, and I rolled a rally, rolled 0 4-ups. Next turn did a rally, rolled 0 4-ups. Next turn did a rally, rolled 1 4-up. And then come into him, and covering fire puts me down to 1 wound, or 2 wounds left. And I'm basically going to pin him, and he's not going to be able to score battle tactic, and he's not going to get enough points, and I'm still going to win at this point. Except for that he does a counter prayer to do D3 mortals, and does 2 mortals to me, exactly killing that pig.
Yeah.
And then my other pig fights 5 executioners. After charging, the gouger fights 5 executioners and does 2 damage with all out attack. And then they swing back and finish that pig off. Which, it was just a lot of very one-sided dice. He played it very well, but I do think that I kind of got him. And then he played his way out of it and rolled his way out of it, and I rolled very soft. But at that skill level, dice matter a lot more.
Yeah.
When the skill is very equal, because people aren't making mistakes. So then you start to feel the dice, because there's no one making mistakes. So what's the only determiner left after that is going to be dice. But it was a super fun game. He played it fantastically. I think I did surprise him turn 1 and really got him on the back foot. But he did everything he needed. He saw what he needed to do. He knew what dice he needed to work, and he got them. But not everyone would have seen the lines that he saw, right? So
for sure.
It was a really fun game, and I'm very proud to have even made it there. Honestly, realistically, if I'd won that game, I would have lost to Jacob Brandon. The next mission was like a month in the middle, and he's got like 40 yard boys. He knows everything I could do, and like on that mission, I would have probably lost anyway. But it would have been cool to get like third or fourth instead of seventh. But seventh is still amazing. Like,
yeah, and what did Jacob place? He placed third or fourth, right?
Something like yeah. He then lost to Jeremy Lefebvre the next round. Very, very, very close game. It was like a 1 point game or something. Like it was crazy close. So the shooting was pretty brutal against him. Like because he just couldn't quite get to the archers the whole game. It's just all game, and it slowly adds up. But yeah, it was dope. I had a fucking awesome time, and I'm very proud of the play. And I'm super excited for new Ironjawz. So,
what are you thinking for? So, like, would you change anything in your list now that this new is out? What would you think?
I probably would take out 3 Gruntas and a Gouger, add a Shaman and something. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe Hacking Crew. Because I want to have the magic and I want to use the tower, and basically because I don't need as much pitting due to the ability to reduce other people's charges.
Yeah.
I can like orient myself a little differently, doing a little bit more battlefield control of magic because I have no wizards in my current list.
Yes.
It gives you teleports, and teleports with Kragness is really good. And then also, endless spells to like reduce charges, and using the Boss Rock Tower to reduce charges and manipulate control scores and stuff like that. I think it's a subtle lateral shift. I think fundamentally the list still works really well.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say is that you're going to try to keep all the pros that this list has at present while trying to fold in the new manifestations and faction train and take advantage of those as well.
Exactly.
It sounds like if you built the list right and played it right, that it would actually be a fundamentally stronger list than what you have on the table. Well, that's good news for all those aspiring.
Slightly dicier, but also slightly more flexibility. So,
well, and you can get rid of those manifestations on the board that are a pain in the butt for yourself as well, right?
Exactly. Like having easy unbinds. Oh, importantly, every single game, the entire tournament, I did turn 1, place a power for an unbind, rolled a 1, and did 3 mortals to myself. All 5 games, turn 1.
Oh, that's fun.
It's just hilarious. I was like, God damn it! All right, but I have somewhere to be, so I have to.
Cool, man.
I have to log off. But it was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah,
I hope people find this video useful.
And make sure you read the comments section. I'll tell people to leave comments if there's any questions that they have.
Yeah. And I will definitely make a point of answering them.
Cool, man. Okay, cool. Thanks so much. I'll catch you next time.
You.
What a guy. What a player. Like, subscribe. Wow.